Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome to the second episode of our Don't Cry Over Spilled Ink podcast. Today's episode is titled Lol-ita, and it's our least favorite books.
Shout out Anisa. She came up with the
I
Lol-ita.
really did.
It's too good.
Despite the fact that I said Lolita was one of my favorite books.
Yeah, but just think about the pun.
It had its ups and downs.
It did. Okay. Let's just start with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Or Tequila Mockingbird.
Oh my God.
If you guys like the puns, let us know. But To Kill a Mockingbird, absolutely
rough.
top one favorite book of my
Favorite.
favorite. I take it back. Least favorite.
Yeah.
Genuinely least favorite book I've ever read in my entire life. Again, this is the kind of book I could talk for literally hours about how much I hated it. Like, there were at least 50,000 points in this book where I was like, do not finish. This is disgusting. Literally awful. Yeah. And I think the worst part for me, well, if you don't know about To Kill a Mockingbird, where have you been? Like, it's about just basically pure racism.
It's giving white savior.
Very much white savior.
Yeah.
It's a book about pure racism narrated by a 6-year-old child who says the N-word repeatedly, constantly, once a page. Like, I'm sitting here like, whose child is? And I get whatever, okay. I talked about it with a few people and they were like, it's because of the time period. It was the first.
But it's really unhinged.
But it's not timeless. And I feel like we're more the kind of people who like timeless literature. It's good when it's good and it's good forever. Yeah. It's good forever. It's not good because it was the first book to ever talk about racism. Like, okay, but now looking at it, it's disgusting.
Exactly.
It's focusing on all the wrong parts of the story. And one huge problem that I had was I started reading it, and the only people who pointed out to me that it was like super racist were people of color. Yeah. It was the only, like, some of the few black people that I know were the only people to point out. And I was like, why is this happening repeatedly? Like,
and that for me was like a really big thing. I remember we were having a conversation with one of our friends. Yeah. And that was the day that we went ice skating, and it fell really hard.
She broke her tailbone.
Again,
like, literally.
That's besides the point. But we were talking about, like, books and stuff because we all like to read. Yeah. And, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird came up. And for context, I read that book when I was, like, 12, 13. Yeah. So, obviously, I think too young to be fully aware of, like, the connotations. Yeah. And so we were talking about it, and they're like, yeah, no, it's really bad. And I was like, oh, why? Yeah. And like, it took me a second, and then now, like, obviously at that point I was older, and I really took a second to reflect on it, and I was like, oh my god, they're absolutely right. Yeah. You know, and I think that that's exactly why timeless literature is so important. Yeah. Because that's what makes the difference between, like, trendy and, like, good, you know? Because exactly for that reason, that, like, if younger me read this, that could have had, like, subconscious effects on the way that I view, for example, like, my relationship as a white person with those of people of color. Yeah. You know, and that could have had really bad effects because of this, like, white savior complex that's, like, kind of instilled in the very core of the book. Yeah. I think, again, like, going into it, I feel like we probably both had similar mindsets that it was, like, an amazing book. So, like... Yeah, I thought it was so super, like, progressive. Activist, and I go in and I was like... Yeah. I think it is a very much... I feel like, as well, I know a lot of people who read it when they were, like, 12, 13. I'm like, this is... Yeah. This could have severe consequences, like, of these people reading this thinking this is activism, this is what we all need to be doing, when it's literally the exact opposite. Like, I think, like, also a big part of that is the role that education plays in it. Like, To Kill a Mockingbird is famously known as, like, a book that you read in, like, 6th, 7th, 8th grade in school, which, first of all, too young, way too young. Even at our school, we read it, like, I know one of the English classes read it last year. My class read 1984. Yeah, same. But I know that, like, the thing is, what I heard from the kids that were in that class that were reading that book is, like, for example, the teachers being like, you know, the classic phrase, like, oh, I'm gonna say it, but for educational purposes, like, you don't need to say it. We can all see it on the page. We can literally all read, like, and it's just very much taking advantage of, like, you know, you think you have an excuse to say it. That's just what it feels like. Yeah. And that's just not the kind of thing that you want to be teaching future generations. It's really messed up. Yeah, and having the excuse to say it also felt like what it was in the book. This white author repeatedly, like, okay,
I understand if you're writing a book about racism in whatever the 1930s, 40s, like I understand. Okay, people did say the N-word, but you don't have to say it every single page. This 6-year-old girl, like again, this book we could probably talk for hours about how wrong this book was. But to keep the page going, let's do They Both Die at the End.
Okay. Personally, oh my god, I hated this book so much. I hated this book, and like I don't like to say that. Like if you've read some of the reviews that I've posted, I don't like to give people bad reviews. Lately I've been working on being a bit more realistic, but I just feel so bad because in like some part of my mind I convince myself that the author is gonna see it and that they're gonna be super upset about it. I feel like I'm single-handedly breaking their heart and ending their career, and I just don't want to be held responsible for that.
And same, like I felt the same thing when I gave a bad review to another book that was like a lesbian love story, and I was like, people are gonna think I'm homophobic. Like we're not, I promise. Like
no, and like the thing is, again, usually I will try to find like a good thing about any book, but this book really made me struggle with that. I hated it. I really did.
Oh my god,
I really did.
Wow, she's getting heated, Garla.
There's a lot of reasons for it. For one, at the time, Book Talk was hyping this book up to the heavens. I thought this was gonna be the book. This is gonna be like the peak of like my experience with literature.
Also sad. Everyone was like, "This book is
the
saddest."
Is so sad. No,
I cried for hours, girl.
I did not.
Did we read the same book?
I did not shed a tear.
Yeah, I put it down.
Please.
I was like, "Okay, I guess
like,
I'm gonna go to bed."
Really, that was really mediocre.
Yeah,
at best. And I hated it. The dialogue was so cringy. It felt like. Oh god, I don't want to say it, but it felt like the author was I don't know how old the author was writing it. It felt like a millennial was trying to use Gen Z language, trying to like appeal to the kids.
Appeal to the kids,
but it really was not working. It just made it really cringy, and it was so distracting because I wanted to focus on the plot, but I couldn't.
The language.
It was just being really awkward.
And also like the whole thing about the one guy like being in like a gang with his friends. I was like, what
was that? Like in an orphanage?
Yeah, I was like, where? This was not necessary.
Yeah, and like his girlfriend is with a guy,
and I was like, what is even happening? I feel like the general idea of getting the notification you're gonna die in the next 24 hours. I thought that could have been a good story.
I love the concept.
I was like, this is
love the concept.
I went into it. I was like, 24 hours, okay, and I liked the like flash back and forth between perspectives. I personally like when books do that.
Yeah, same.
But this was not giving. The writing was so unbearable that I couldn't even pay attention to the plot because it was every other word was like lol, TikTok, cringe. I was like,
no. And like for me, another thing was like I felt it was such a wasted opportunity. I was so disappointed because like this idea of like, you know, you're notified 24 hours before you die. I thought you could have gone into so many really good directions with that idea. And you chose this one.
Yeah, and the way that they were like doing like they were doing activities that they've always wanted to do.
Swimming with sharks.
Yeah, swimming with sharks. And there was one thing I think they did like bungee jumping or something. It was like,
or like they thought about it. There was like a center for it.
Yes, the center. I was like, what is even happening?
What is happening?
I feel like it could have been much more philosophical rather than we're gonna do this crazy things. Like I think
it could have been really thought-provoking.
Yes, I think it should have been. It was very. I felt like it was for children.
Same.
I felt like it was a children's book, but then it got to the part where they were like, I think they had sex. I can't remember.
They kissed.
Sorry, girl. It's been a moment, but they were like in bed and stuff, and I was like.
Unless I'm wrong. I don't know.
I don't know. Let us know, guys, if they...
Clearly, I was distracted by the lols.
The lols.
The hashtags.
And I'm sorry, but the ending was so, like... It was rising.
Plummet.
Rock bottom. Absolute rock bottom. They mentioned his oven, I think, was broken from the get-go. We knew his oven was broken. Yeah. And then he dies because he turned on his oven. God, you're such an idiot. That infuriated me. It was infuriating. Like, it was really infuriating.
And, like, obviously, we might be getting some of the details wrong. It's been a while.
It's been a moment.
Like, honestly, like, one thing that I will say, to give credit where credit is due, again, I thought the idea was... Yeah. I liked the idea. And, like, even though I really hated the book, after I put it down, like, it did make me think a lot. It made me low-key paranoid. Like, what if I die today? What if today is the day?
What if I get this notification?
You know, like... And like that I liked because it made me think.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like thought provoking.
Yeah.
I just wish it would have tapped into that more.
Yeah, I was hoping for more of a philosophical discussion about death and less of a let's go bungee jumping with our friends. It was just this is a longer episode, guys. Be prepared. We're getting heated. Okay, well, let's flash forward. Okay, I'll do It Ends With Us.
Okay.
Again, you need to read this book because I feel like you'll have the same thoughts about They Both Died.
That's the one. Is that the one with the pink flowers on the cover?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Again, for reference, It Ends With Us. If you like it, okay, it's perfectly acceptable. I'll allow it. But for me personally, it was such a letdown. I think similarly with They Both Die at the End, it was the TikTok book hyping it up. All I saw was how this love story was amazing. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, perfect. I love love stories. I've read some of Colleen Hoover's books before, and I was like, this is, okay, I'm excited. And I was hearing all Lily and Atlas, these two characters, they're so in love, so beautiful. I open up the book, domestic abuse. I was like, I'm sorry, what?
No, yeah.
And so if I think if I went in with a different mindset, I would have come out with a different mindset. I was blindsided. Every review I saw, no trigger warning. Yeah. No mention of the fact that no trigger warning. Come on. She's getting literally abused left and right. The guy who's abusing her sister is like justifying and all these people were like talking about how this guy who was abusing her, the author presented him as such a good guy. He's the perfect guy, whatever. He made some mistakes. And I thought it was really harmful because it was kind of playing into that, he's just he's a good guy who does a few things wrong. Like where he's literally, they're making cookies at one point or baking or something, and he's a surgeon and he burns his hand and she's laughing. It was a funny thing, and he's losing his mind. Shoot. Like, this is my whole career. Like, you.
Oh my gosh.
Like, okay,
you'll live.
Yeah, it's gonna be okay. And at one point,
you'll get a blister at most.
And then he's like gaslighting her. He shoves her down the stairs, and then again, no trigger warning. I had no idea this was about domestic abuse. Yeah, I thought this was a love story.
The cover didn't give it away.
Cover story. Flowers, like, and again, going back to Lily and Atlas, the love story that it was supposedly about was that she knew this guy when she was young, and then she gets into this abusive relationship, and then she meets him later on, again, like in a restaurant, I want to say, and I was like, what? Why is everyone focusing on the entirely, like the wrong part of the story? Like, I think, and it's also a true story. It was based on a true story. The author's mom. And so I think the author even made a statement herself being like, guys, this isn't a love story. Please stop presenting it as one. Right. And I think that's why I just didn't love the book, because I think I needed to be more...
It was made out to be something that it wasn't.
Definitely, it was all wrong. I went in and I was like, what is even happening? Like, domestic abuse, literally true story. And all these people are focusing on this tiny, like... If it was 1/4 of the plot was the Lily and Atlas, and everything else was her being abused, her overcoming this challenge, her having his baby, and then having the courage to leave him. And I was like, why is nobody, I think...
questioning it?
Yeah, nobody was questioning it. Nobody put a trigger warning. Please, guys, if you're going to post a review about a book that's harming, you need to put a trigger warning. Like, please, because I was not mentally prepared, because the cover doesn't give anything away. The blurb on the back.
I mean, And, like, the thing is also, like, I haven't read it, but from what you're telling me, what you've told me in the past, this has been a long conversation. But from what you've told me, it's like the similar issue with like To Kill a Mockingbird is like you're making things out to be like something that they're not, and that can be so harmful, especially with a younger audience. Again, To Kill a Mockingbird, that was a school book for ages. This book, it's on TikTok. Again, no 30-year-olds or most 30-year-olds are not on TikTok.
Yeah. All these people, again, it was like 13, 14-year-old girls.
Right.
And I'm
that can be so harmful.
Okay, but you need to put a trigger warning. And 2, you need to put an age. Yeah. There's smut in this book, just to preface. And people are not putting an age restriction. I'm sorry, but it can be really harmful for young children to be reading this kind of like graphic thing. It gives you wrong ideas.
And also content about abuse can like... Obviously, I'm not saying you read one book about a toxic relationship and now you're going to have toxic relationships for the rest of your life. But if you get into like a book like that and then you start seeking out other books like that, you start seeking out movies and other content about that kind of stuff, that can really like pollute your idea of relationships and that can be so harmful, especially at a young age.
Definitely. So that's my thoughts on that. Yeah. And now you go.
And then I'm going to quickly wrap up this incredibly long episode.
We can do 2 parts. We can do 2 parts.
I think we're going to cut this into 2 parts.
Forward. We're going to do 2 parts.
Yeah. But basically, the last one for me is The Catcher in the Rye. Now, before we all lose our minds, before we all go crazy, a lot of people have approached me about the review that I left about this book, and I would like to justify myself. Now, I see how the book might have appealed to certain people. I see that there was a target audience for that book. Personally, I was just not a member of that audience, and that's fine. But I feel like as someone that reviews books, I'm not going to pretend to like it because I know that there's a hypothetical, target audience. If I didn't like it, then I didn't like it, and that's what I'm going to tell you.
How could you, Anisa?
But that's one of the main reasons that I was very much not hesitant in writing the review that I did. But another reason was just that I feel like, the idea or the impression that I get from what the protagonist in this book was supposed to give was, angst. It's giving, the trouble of being a teenager, being uncertain about your future, the pressures of, like, maybe not being supported by your parents. I got all that.
Yeah.
But I think that there were other ways for me to do, I feel like personally for me to do it. Because if the book, for example, is aiming to, maybe give a teenage audience more courage about, like, it's okay to not know where you're going. It's okay to be, like, to feel pressure right now. Yeah. Then I would have liked a slightly more likable protagonist. I feel like the protagonist was just rude, unnecessarily rude to, like, literally everyone in their path. Not to say that he literally, spoiler warning, tried to hire a prostitute.
Oh my god, yeah.
And she's, like, a minor. That is a minor. And again, like, I understand this book was written, like, earlier, but like we already said about To Kill a Mockingbird, it's not timeless.
Yeah.
And then that wasn't even like the biggest issue for me, but if I'm supposed to relate to them, I feel like I don't want to relate to a person that is awful to everyone.
Yeah.
And so for me, mean. That's something that kind of like, it tipped me off. Also, my last comment on this, because I think I've done enough talking about it, I think that's a good justification. Yeah. But my last comment is no hate. But I saw a TikTok on Book Talk earlier, and this is like a while back. This was like right after I posted the review,
I was gonna say, did you post that on the story,
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
But it was basically this video where they were saying, no offense, but anyone that didn't like The Catcher in the Rye didn't get it.
Oh, yeah?
Listen, lady.
It's true, guys. She didn't get it. She didn't.
Listen, that's fine. You can have your opinion. But that low-key, I was having a bad day. That really tipped me off the edge right there. Because, I mean, I just think that as someone that reviews books, if you have, like, a book-dedicated account, that's just such a... I feel like that was a bit of an ignorant thing to say. It's like, people can have differences in taste. I feel like my argument... Well, obviously, I think that my arguments are valid. Yeah. Probably because I'm biased, because they're my arguments. I don't know. Let us know in the comments if I'm just...
Yeah, no, but it's giving me the same thing.
Like, if... That's your job. You're supposed to give your opinion. And sure, you can be like, I really think it's a shame that a lot of people didn't like this book, and here's my reasons. Yeah. But I don't think that I would ever say that someone didn't get it. I feel like that would be very ignorant. And just low-key insulting.
Yeah, it's a bit back to the, like, teen angst, like, girl, like, this book is so emo. This book is so, like, if you didn't get it, it's probably because you're not depressed. Like, yeah. And I feel like this also was kind of like a harmful depiction of depression, because he's literally just complete asshole to every single person.
The nuns.
The nuns, yeah, girl.
What did they do?
Even the people who he was living with in his, like, school or whatever, okay, fine, you don't have to like them, but they didn't do anything. He starts beating them up.
I felt bad for the kid that he was bullying. Like, obviously, like, the kid with the acne.
Yeah.
He was literally just bullying him because he had acne and was, like, mildly annoying. Like, I get that. Like, he was being a bit gross with, like, the toenail clipper. I literally remember that. I get that, but I would not, like, yell at someone about that.
It was giving very much teenager complaining for 200 pages straight. It was just complaints after complaints after complaints.
Like, exactly.
And and never once in the book did it say that it was about depression as well. So I was like
what is
so
this?
What are you complaining about? Like, I don't know. It was just, for me, it was just not it. Yeah. It was just not it. Should I talk about the last one? I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, finally, last one. This is a longer episode. We have a lot to say about this. We're too passionate. It's okay. Like, okay, we can post these on, if we want to, we can post them on YouTube, and then...
Or we do, like, 3 parts.
Or we do 3 parts, yeah. This is a really long episode. Sorry, guys, but...
We love to complain.
We do love to complain. The Catcher in the Rye It's really about us. It is.
I really didn't get it. I really didn't get it.
You didn't understand. Me all along. Yeah, it was. Okay, lastly, The Hating Game, which I also want you to read this because I feel like you'll have similar thoughts. The Hating Game. Again, I love a silly little romance. I like the enemies to lovers usually. Yeah. This was too much. Ooh. Big guy, petite girl, mentioned every single page.
Oh, is that the one with like the... No, that was the Spanish Love Deception.
Yeah.
I was about to say like big guy, small girl, the little spider monkey.
Yeah. She's remembered that. No,
I really did.
The Hating Game, it's basically these two coworkers and they hate each other. Surprise! And they're like competing to get like this promotion that they both want.
I think I read like the blurb of
I think it recently got turned into a TV show as well with Lucy Hale. And also the TV show... Wrong. The characters are not at all what I thought they were going to look like. Again, it could have just been like...
Erin said so it's wrong.
So it could have just been me making up what I thought they looked like in my head, but it was completely wrong. And also, like, I don't know. For as much as you're going to mention the fact that she's so petite and he's so huge, the actors are not even that different in size. I'm like, so what was the point of mentioning it every single other page? Yeah. Like, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like, there was at least 5 mentions of it per chapter.
Oh my God.
Per chapter. He's so big. I'm so small.
I would throw the book.
And also, it was giving kind of stalker. Oh. If I'm being honest. At one point, they're talking and she goes to his apartment. The eyes, like the color of her eyes is the color of his bedroom wall. He painted his bedroom wall the same color as her eyes. I'm like, what is even happening? Like,
that's giving the vibe. I saw it again. TikTok.
Yeah.
I saw this TikTok. I didn't read this book. I don't even remember its name. If any of you guys know the book that I'm talking about, comment it below.
Let us know.
But, there was this book, and like, you know, on TikTok sometimes they'll like give you quotes of like a book and they'll like, put the name of the caption to like convince you to read it or whatnot. Yeah. And it was giving about how like this girl like thinks she has a stalker, so she like buys a new alarm system, but the alarm system doesn't work, and it turns out the guy that's stalking her is the CEO of like the alarm system company, and they purposely sold her like a default alarm.
Oh my God.
So he could like get, and he was like, and then the quote was like, that he's so proud of her for trying though, and I was like, it just reminded me of that.
Yeah, it was giving insane. Very much like, I feel like the author was expecting us to go, oh, that's so, and really I was like, ooh, this is kind of creepy. That's weird. And again, it was the whole, going back to the petite thing, like you should read it, because it was, I'm drowning, like, you know you know that petite trend on TikTok where it's like, I have to hop from keyboard to write an email. It was literally like, it's so hard for me to get dressed because I'm drowning in my giant cardigan.
Oh
like,
my God.
Girl, please shut up. Please shut up. I was so like, I don't know. Again, going back to the TV show, also like seeing the trailer kind of ruined it for me because he, in my mind, was tall, dark, and handsome, and I think he's blonde in the show, and he's wearing, it was not giving, in The Office.
There's an office?
And there's an office, they're working in the office together, and the office is described in a very, very specific way, like, we're all picturing it the same way. Why was it not that way in the show? It was not that way in the show at all.
The budget was low, because no one was reading the book.
The budget was, and again, this book was being praised on TikTok. And
it's always the TikTok book.
It's always the 13-year-old TikTok. No hate if you're 13 and on TikTok, by the way. We were as well. But it's just like, people were praising this enemies to lovers fantasy. Girl, if somebody was doing this to me.
Oh, no.
Girl, and they're having and one thing they do all the time, these two main characters in the book, they have like a staring contest. I'm like, this is so cringy. Yeah. Again, it's also kind of perpetuating this like idea that,
if he doesn't take no for an answer, it's good.
Yeah, he wants you. No, if you guys are literally
that.
enemies and he hates you and he's talking down to you all the time, he really likes you.
Oh,
no, he doesn't, girl. Like, again, this is really harmful for like young people who the book was aimed at.
I'm seeing a pattern with like the reasons that we don't like these books. I think it's a very valid reason.
It is, and it's like it's aimed at younger audiences, but there's literally smut in the book, which is not appropriate for a lot of young people, and it can be extremely harmful if you grow up with this expectation that, oh, I'm gonna have my enemies to lovers fantasy. So any guy who's literally fat shaming me, like
again, it's like condoning bullying.
Yeah, and it's like, that's not okay, girl. So I personally hated it. I read it and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I think that TikTok idea clouded my mind. And I was like, oh, okay. Like
we need to not get our ideas from TikTok anymore.
And I was like, okay, you know what? Like 3 out of 5 stars. And then I went back and I was like, this book literally sucked. I actually
literally same. I did the same thing with like They Both Die at the End. I think I gave it like 2 stars, 3 stars.
Me, I also gave it 3 stars.
That was too generous.
Yeah, it was. So sorry, this was a really long episode.
We've been really positive this entire time.
We have a lot to complain about.
Yeah, this is a really long episode. But I think we're going to call it a day.
So thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for sticking around again. And we hope to see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.